I'm here. I'm here, everybody. Here I am, alive and well. Thank you all so very much for your patience. This is Aaron Barker. You are listening to the breakdown. And thank you so very much for the opportunity to be in your vehicle, office, residence, warehouse, farmhouse, hen house, outhouse, or doghouse, wherever it is you may be listening to the broadcast today. This very last episode of 2024. That's right, everybody. It is time to kiss 2024 goodbye. I am ready to say goodbye to this terrible, horrible, no good, very bad year. All of that's coming up. So much stuff to get into today. We're going to be talking about your 2025 goals or life goals, the biggest stories that we've seen in 2024 in both the secular and the Christian world. And we will also be looking at if someone says that you shouldn't pray for them, what should you do? Plus, detecting a sexual predator now by scent. That is a new development in technology to keep people safe and to keep children safe. So, thank you all again for being with me and for joining me. As you can see, we are sans Erica Sauer today. She misinformation herself. She is actually off on vacation with her family. So, wish her well. And hopefully everything goes well with her travels, and she will be back, Lord willing, next week for the first show of 2025. I can't believe, honestly, that it's already coming to an end, that it's already coming to a close. I am. I know that at midnight on Tuesday evening, when it flips over to January 1st, 2025, I know in my I know that nothing is going to change. Everything is going to be the same. We're still going to have the same struggles. We're still going to have the same problems. We're still going to have the same issues, the same hurts and the same feelings and all of that stuff. I know that. Intellectually I understand that. But there is just something about turning the clock, turning the dial, so to speak, to that next time, that next day, that next year, brand new, be clean slate of a new year, and our ability to really just start over again in a sense. It's a new year for new beginnings, new opportunities, new friends. We continue to have the old ones. You don't scrap all the old friends and get rid of them. Some of them maybe, but not all of them. But it is. I know intellectually nothing different is going to happen, but emotionally, spiritually, I believe that was my chair. I believe that we have an opportunity to get a redo, a mulligan in a sense. And to be honest with you, if I could go through and pick out any years where I could just say, nope, I don't want anything in there to happen. It would be this year. And we can opine and we can discuss, the things about that have happened to us. And, of course, everybody who are regular listeners to the show, that 2024 was fraught with a lot of personal issues. Everything, it started out okay. Everything was fine. And then in February, the house burned down. In April, I went into the hospital for an appendectomy. A week after that, I had sepsis and spent about 2 weeks in the hospital. So the first half of this year, in a way, the first half of this year was breakdown less. There a lot of people didn't even have the breakdown, and we weren't listening to or doing the show because me. It was all my fault. I was the guy that was like, hey, I'm going to check out for a bit here. I'm going to go hang out in the hospital for a few weeks. And I watched a lot of NASCAR, watched a lot of Righteous Gemstones, watched a lot of different things, and listened to a lot of books, and a lot, and in a way, not in a way that whole situation, not in a way but it just it changed my entire life, and hopefully it will be for the better. Hopefully, going forward, things won't be as bad. I know each year brings its own challenges. Each day brings its own challenges. Each moment brings its own challenges. I got challenges today. I got my side of the family's doing our Christmas this afternoon, and I still have to do Christmas shopping. It's okay. I don't think they listen to the show. I can tell you that. I can tell you that I've got a couple more gifts that I have to buy. So I'm doing the show today, and I have to go out and buy Christmas shopping, Christmas gifts. So I'm like that close to having, an anxiety attack. I don't even know what that's like, but that's a new thing this year. Not wanting to be in large crowds and groups of people. Trauma has a way of doing that to people. Trauma has a way of doing that. So okay, well, anyway, enough about me. And enough about my whining and opining and pissing and moaning there. Let's get into some stuff today because there's a big program. Even though I'm all by myself, I've had a co-hosts for so long that some people out there are like, I'm going to tune in just to watch him crash and burn. So join me here today as the show burns completely down and as we say goodbye to the worst year of my life thus far. And I know that there are things that can happen coming up in the next few years that I don't even want to vocalize. I don't even want to think about at all. But I know they're coming. And that brings a source of anxiety. I'm going to go ahead and jump to this real quick. I was going to save this until a wee bit later in the program because we're still going to do bad theology, even though I'm all by myself. We're still going to do bad theology. Well, I look back on this year and a lot of things have happened. A lot of things have changed in my outlook. And those of you that have been along with me on this ride have seen. I'm questioning deeply held beliefs now. And not that I'm saying I don't believe in God anymore, or I don't believe that Jesus is a Messiah. I'm not saying any of that stuff. I think I'm to a point now in my life where I have to start critically looking at everything because I believe that, first off, I need to respect the traditions, the scriptures, the things that have happened before me, and the more intelligent people that have come before me. I am not the smartest guy out there. I know that's a shock. If you're driving, you almost swerved off the road into a tree. I don't want you to do that. But I'm not the smartest guy out there. Typically the smartest guy in the room. I understand that, but not necessarily the smartest guy out there. Or person. I'm sorry. I'm not the smartest person. So I don't believe in any way that questioning traditions or questioning, scriptural things is at all being disrespectful. I don't believe at all that it is in any way. Disrespectful is a word. There's another word there. I don't believe in any way that it is a bad thing. I actually read an article on Bart Ehrman's blog this morning, but it's about being consistently critical in the good sense. And the quote that was kind of the marketing quote, you could say, the social media quote that was put out there was this: you have to examine, just because an ancient source says something doesn't make it historically accurate. You have to examine each and every source critically. You have to consider the biases of the sources. You have to check what a source says against what you know on other grounds to be historically right. Your other grounds have to be rooted in a critical evaluation of the other sources that you use to establish those grounds. Just because a source says something doesn't make it so. That's true of the Talmud, Tacitus, Livy, the Gospel of John, of Paul, Dio Cassius, all other ancient sources, including Josephus. That makes history much harder than any of us would like. What we would like to do is to show what really happened in the past simply by pointing to a source and saying, see, it says so right there. The words say it. That's what it says. I added the emphasis on there. That was all my emphasis. But he says here, you can't simply point to it that way. He says, what we want to do is to show what really happened in the past is simply point to a source and say, see, it says so. But the question is not only what the source says, but also whether it is probably right based on everything else we know. See, there's so many difficult, at some point in your life, with all the research that people do, or the lack of research that we do, the lack of critical examination of sources and texts that we do, at some point in our lives, we just accept what somebody else says. I like to think I am a critical person, not in the sense that I'm critical over somebody nitpicking everything they're doing, but critical in the way of critical thinking. critically analyzing something as it's been given to me. I try to do that, but I found out this year that I'm not as much like that. That there were some things that I just phoned it in. I was like, you know what? I'm going to go ahead and accept this because that person's a historian and they seem like a reliable source. So I'm just going to believe their conclusions. And then I'm going to take those conclusions, absorb those conclusions as my own, and then regurgitate those in my own way. The words that I use, my vernacular, whatever it is that I do, I'm going to just pop that out there. That's how I'm going to do that. Right. And I found out that's not how you do things. If you want to understand something, you have to do some digging. And I know we're not all going to be archaeologists. I know we're not all going to be historians, but there comes a point where we have to question even the sources that we have placed our trust in. And I think that's a healthy thing. I think it's a very healthy thing. And I also think it's healthy if we do it in groups of people, small groups, maybe smaller groups, perhaps on Zoom, where we don't have to, necessarily be together in person all the time. But what I'm saying is, I believe that questions like that, critical questions, critical thinking, is all a part of our lives. It's all a part of our faith journey. It's all a part of where we're going, what we're doing, how we are traversing this world, right? So all of that, and I say all of that because here's this source. I mentioned trauma earlier. We're going to go ahead and jump into this. I didn't really mean to get started this early, but I guess on this stuff. But I guess this is how it's going. This is one of those big news stories, I should say. Let me do this. Let me go ahead and jump to the biggest news stories in the most top read stories on Christianity today. All right. And we're going to get into some regular news stories here in a minute. But I looked for Christian stories, top Christian stories, not a lot of critical stuff in there, just a lot of, top stories ish, or most read articles, things like that. And then I've got a source here as well for some most of the other sources as well. By the way, you can join the show. We're on the Crusader. We're on the Crusade channel right now, crusadechannel.com, live radio the way it should be. You can go to crusadechannel.com, join in the chat room over there if you would like to. You can also jump in on the Rumble chat right now. For some reason, Rumble Studio has an issue with the app on Facebook. So we're not currently broadcasting on Facebook because of an issue with this system. And I don't want to bog down, or the issue with the broadcast stuff here. I don't want to bog down my system by trying to get all of the by trying to broadcast to all these different places at once. So I'm just doing Rumble and YouTube. But you can join us on Rumble or YouTube. Also go to aaronbarker.substack.com. That's where you can find all the shows for the breakdown and listen to those as well. And I got a clip I found out today. I posted a little clip on Instagram, and I didn't know it until today, but it kind of, it got quite a few views over on Instagram. So I'm going to play that for you here in a minute, and that we will talk about that perhaps, but I'll play you the TikTok version because TikTok is much more user friendly when it comes to broadcasting things on the radio show and over the air. But here is this. So the most read news stories on Christianity Today. And if you have a top news story and you would like to post that, go ahead and drop that in the chat and I'll cover that as well. We'll have a good discussion on that. Good morning to Audrey, to Roger, to Curtis. Thank you very much for joining us over there. Don't forget to share the show and let everybody know that we are still having a show today, even though I am by my lonesome. So much appreciated. All right. So the one of the top news stories that was read on the websites this year was about John MacArthur claiming that PTSD and OCD and ADHD are not real. So let's go ahead and take a listen to what John MacArthur had to say here and kind of dissect that and see why people got so mad over it.
There's no such thing as PTSD. There's no such thing as OCD. There's no such thing as ADHD. Those are noble lies. To basically give the excuse to, in the end of the day, to medicate people. And Big Pharma is in charge of a lot of that. If you understand, take PTSD, for example. What that really is grief. You are fighting a war, you lost your buddies, you have a certain amount of survival guilt because you made it back, they didn't. How do you deal with the grief? Grief is a real thing. But grief is part of life. And if you can't navigate grief, you can't live life. But if you clinically define that, you can give them a pill, a series of medications, and they end up in LA homeless on the sidewalk. This is in regard to children, it's the most deadly thing that's been unleashed on children, medication.
All right, I want to stop there for just a minute. MacArthur is, for those of you who don't know who he is, he's a Baptist minister out of California. He had a pretty large ministry. Grace to You is what it's called. And he broadcasts around the world, has been doing so for a very long time, and considered by some to be, me at one point in my life, considered to be one of the greatest expositors of our generation. Now, the dude's 85 years old. You can tell there that he's kind of, he's tired. But there was a comment, and I'm going to read it here in just a minute. But one of the things that I thought interesting about this was I would tend to agree with him when it comes to these disorders being considered real or not real. All right, and I've had this conversation and with several people before, and I've said the words that it's not real, and I've said it to get a rise out of them, to try to get them to have a conversation back, to get a response from them, and then to be able. But when you say something like PTSD isn't real, what it is it's grief. You're worried, you're upset because you came home and your buddies didn't. You have survival grief, but grief is part of everyday life. If you can't navigate it, you can't go home. You can't you can't live life. I believe there's a bit of a difference in the psychological impact of what happens to a person when they lose a loved one, or when something like happened to my family this year. Your house burns down, you lose everything, right? There's something different about being thrust into a situation where it's either you are going to kill that other person and as many of those other persons as possible so that you go home, and for some reason you were in the same situations, but your buddy got blasted and he doesn't get to go home. Why am I still here? I think that that's a bit of a different kind of grief than the grief someone feels when they lose. Now, I'm not diminishing anybody's grief as well. I'm not saying, well, that's a lot worse than losing a parent, because it's not. But it is the way in which you deal with it. If somebody's sitting there and they're upset, they're crying like, oh my gosh, my mother died, or my father passed away, or I don't understand why I'm here, and my buddy got killed over in this war. And you're like, well, that's grief. You got to navigate it or you can't live life. Really? That's like telling a woman that had an abortion to get over, that got raped to get over it. There's a big difference in the way in which we address people. And maybe it's because I'm a little more sensitive to these situations now that I have also experienced something very traumatic, and I can see where people are coming from now. And I have a bit of more of experience and understanding that oftentimes the little pat on your head that says, oh, everything's going to be fine, honey, God has a plan and a purpose, that doesn't necessarily help me out in the middle of my grief, right? Well, God's trying to teach you something. Well, do you think he could have taught me something without having to see my buddy run over by a car, or a bullet fly through the skull of my friend, or what's the purpose of all that? I'm sure the God of the universe could have found another and a better way to communicate that to me, right? But if we don't look at it like that, if we don't start considering it, we're going to end up diminishing other people's griefs, diminishing what other people have gone through, and taking away any ability we have to reach them and talk to them. Now, I will say this: Beth Moore did mention. She commented. And for those of you who don't know, Beth Moore is a very popular female preacher and teacher, which I'm going to address a little bit of that a little later too. Some of the posts that came up on Facebook about it. But she said, I've had several very serious conversations with my daughters and my board concerning my public voice and my aging when it filters naturally thin, and we're at a greater risk of saying more than we should. Please love and respect him, meaning John MacArthur, enough to sift what should and shouldn't be publicized. There is simply no way he could know, for example, what my husband has endured over being in a fire with his brother when he was a toddler and watching him burn and not acknowledging the reality of PTSD. See, that's the kind of thing that we don't think about. That's the kind of thing that is diminished because we don't consider fully everything that's happening in a person's life or their current situation, right? And that is it is a frustrating and deeply unnerving circumstance in which to be. And then somebody else commented after her, I hear you, Beth. We still need a group. That's not what I thought it was. But anyway, so that's one of the stories. So John MacArthur made headlines that way. He's really good, by the way, at marketing, at getting himself up there in front of the masses. He also made waves this year when he said that Martin Luther King Jr. Was not a Christian and attacked a character of Martin Luther King Jr. because Martin Luther King Jr. in his early formation of his Christian walk and going to college, that he had some issues or some differences in opinion or differences in theological understanding that somebody like MacArthur had. And that's really the way that most of these things happen, isn't it? It's when somebody differs from what I say, when somebody differs from my own personal opinions about Christianity, when somebody differs from my own theological dogma, when somebody differs from my what I've been taught, that's when we start casting dispersions. We start saying, well, that person's really not a Christian because a real Christian would believe this and a real Christian would never say that. We're guilty of the no true Scotsman fallacy. We just start throwing things out there and just start insulting people as best as we can. For those people, by the way, that are watching this over on Rumble or any of the other places, I apologize, but my camera is giving me some issues now. So you're going to be looking at a wonderfully beautiful claymation face of me until I get this figured out. But you can, well, I'm sure everybody's okay with that. They don't have to look at me. Let me see here. Okay. Also, for those of you who have listened to the show, a couple weeks ago, we had a gentleman on the show by the name of Scotty Roberts. Most people who listen to the show know who that is. Just in need of some prayers right now. He's in the hospital battling some illnesses. So if you all could be so kind as to say some prayers for them, I would, and his family would greatly appreciate that as well. So let's jump into this here. We see ABC News says these are the U.S. stories everybody have been talking about. When we get back from the break, we're going to address those. We're going to talk about them, and we're going to see what stories stuck with us and what stories we couldn't care less about. And we're also going to cover some of your stories, plus find out how you can detect a sexual predator simply by the scent. Coming up here in a minute.
Asking the questions that get you kicked out of Bible studies and sent to therapy.
You're listening to The Breakdown.
All right, folks, anybody out there that's listening during this little mini break, I appreciate it. I apologize for the issues I'm having with the camera, although I'm sure nobody out there minds not having to look at my face, but I'm going to try to get this fixed as quickly as possible here. So just stay tuned and stay connected with me. I greatly appreciate your patience here. Welcome back to the breakdown, everybody. Thanks so much for staying with me during that break. You know, for some reason, I guess I'm not allowed to broadcast my face. Can I? I mean, does that mean I'm being censored if I'm not allowed to broadcast my face? Well, our viewership might go up in that case. But here's what I'm going to do. I'm just going to keep plugging ahead, doing the show, and hoping that won't impact anybody else's desire to listen and or watch. All right, so some of the top news stories that we've had. Don't forget, if you have something that I don't cover here, I'm probably not going to cover everything that you all have as well. But I had to reset. I had to refresh my page. So I'm lost all the chats there. If anybody was chatting with me, I apologize for that. But here we go. Here are the top news stories according to the ABC News, the U.S. stories everyone was talking about in 2024. It was the Alaska door plug incident. Minutes after Alaskan Airlines Flight 1282 took off from the Portland International Airport on January 5, a door plug blew out, sparking chaos on the plane. The flight was nearly full with the exception of a few seats. The two seats next to the missing door plug happened to be empty. Oh, boy. The Boeing 737 MAX 9 safely made an emergency landing. No one was seriously injured. You know, that's pretty crazy because I took a flight a few weeks ago. And if you all can still hear me, please let me know out there to make sure that my voice is being carried out there. And hey, no problem at all. And as long as you can still hear me out there as well, that's fantastic. But I took a flight a couple of weeks ago. It was by myself, and I was flying out west. And I thought I was upgrading on Delta. I thought I was upgrading to Comfort Plus, which gives you a little bit bigger of a seat, a little bit more leg room, right? And I thought I was upgrading to that. But what I didn't realize was I was actually upgrading to the exit row. Okay. And on the exit row, for those of you who don't know, on either side, there's three chairs there. Then I didn't know this, but I sat down in this exit row and I had a boatload of leg room. It was so nice. And it was only like $15 or something to upgrade to that. And I had a lot of leg room, but the seats did not, the armrests, typically you can fold the armrests up and kind of spill into the other seats. If you're a guy my size, you spill into the other seats. Well, this had solid armrests that went all the way to the floor. So it was almost like you were sitting in a little box, right? So that was, wasn't horribly uncomfortable, but it was different for me to have to sit like that. But it was a lot more comfortable, for sure. It was a lot more comfortable because I did not, I felt more comfortable. I felt a little bit more spread out there, but you also had to sign up. You had to sign an agreement that said that you were of good health and that you were able to withstand, or if there was somebody, if in the event of an emergency, you needed to help people out, that you would be willing to do that and you would be able to do that and that you didn't have any issues in doing that. So I was like, yeah, I'm fine with doing that. I can handle it. I can help other people out if necessary, and it was worth it to me. It was worth it to me because I was able to get that extra leg room there. But I was thinking, I'm like, for every flight now that I upgrade, if I can't get Comfort Plus, I'd really like to sit in that exit row. And this just happens to be 2 seats empty right next to the exit row. I probably would have tried to upgrade to those seats. But anyway, that was pretty crazy. It said that an NTSB preliminary report found that before the flight, 4 bolts designed to prevent the door plug from falling off the plane were missing. A Boeing executive told ABC News this summer that fuselage came to Boeing damaged from the supplier, and to fix the fuselage, the door plug needed to come off. Before they could get the plug back on, the plane needed to be moved. The overnight team put the door plug back on to seal the plane from the outer elements, but didn't install the bolts because it wasn't their job. The first team never filled out the paperwork when they removed the door, so the next team didn't know to put the bolts back on. Somebody will get fired for that one for sure. Let's see. Francis Scott Key Bridge collapse. On March 26th, a container ship struck the Francis Scott Key Bridge in Baltimore, collapsing the bridge and killing 6 construction workers who were filling potholes on the span. 2 workers survived. The crash affected entry into the port of Baltimore for weeks when the debris blocking entry for other ships. Crews worked to remove about 50,000 tons of steel, concrete, and asphalt from the channel and the container ship, the Department of Justice said. It was considered one of the worst transportation disasters in recent memory. In October, operators of the vessel that destroyed the bridge agreed to pay nearly $102 million for costs stemming from the federal response. According to cost estimates provided by the Maryland government, the bridge's reconstruction will cost between $1.7 billion and $1.9 billion. That was what somebody from the DOT had said. That was, I remember that because I wasn't in the hospital at that point yet. I think I was in the hospital in April. So I remember. It's so weird when you start looking back on the stories from the year that you were involved in, this past year, and it's like, my goodness, that was this year. Like, wow, that was all the way back then. But yeah, that was one of those situations, one of those stories where you're like, my goodness, that did happen. And I can't believe it was so long ago that it happened that it feels like it was last year. Like, it doesn't even feel like it was part of this year at all. And, but yeah, that to me is crazy considering the amount of things that have happened since then, right? The amount of things that have happened, the amount of things that have been that have gone on. School shooting. I'm going to do this first. Alec Baldwin's Rust case was dismissed. Remember that one? Alec Baldwin, who Quiddy Fingers accidentally shot somebody on set of the movie Rust. His charges were dismissed. They dismissed the case, not the charges. In July, on day 3 of his involuntary manslaughter trial for the fatal on-set shooting of the cinematographer Helena Hutchins. The defense said in its argument for dismissal that live ammunition that came into the hands of local law enforcement related to the investigation was concealed from them. The judge agreed to dismiss, saying the state's discovery violation regarding the late disclosure of a supplemental report on the ammunition evidence injected needless delay into the proceedings, approached bad faith. It was highly prejudicial to the defendant. Meanwhile, Rust armorer Hannah Gutierrez was found guilty of involuntary manslaughter in March. She was found not guilty of tampering with evidence. Prosecutors said Gutierrez failed to maintain proper firearm safety, arguing her negligence led to Hutchins' death. Gutierrez is sentenced in April to 18 months in prison. 18 months in prison, and we haven't gotten anything yet for Alec Baldwin. Justice is what we want. I understand. I can understand. It's a simple mistake, Quiddy Fingers. A simple mistake. You don't expect, and everybody's like, he should know gun safety. He should know it. I mean, the dude he probably, from what his public persona is, he hates guns. He doesn't want to have guns. He doesn't want to hold on to guns. And in his defense, I won. It's a movie. How many times has Alec Baldwin held a gun and shot somebody? How many times? How many hours have been spent by someone aiming a gun at another person in a movie and pulling the trigger, or aiming it around that other person, right? We don't know all the circumstances, but the thing that really pisses me off about this story is Alec Baldwin's refusal to accept any responsibility whatsoever. He won't even go, man, I effed up. I don't know what happened. It was, now, of course, he can't say that because then it's going to be used against him in trial. So the best thing for him to do is to keep his mouth shut and not talk to the public. But honestly, I mean, we have a pounce culture. We like to pounce on people as soon as they screw up. As soon as somebody we like screws up, we're like, oh, it's okay. They screwed up. Matt Gaetz is, all kinds of charges or all kinds of allegations against Matt Gaetz. Eyewitness testimonies that Matt Gaetz is a sexual pervert and had sex with an underage girl and partied hard. And it's all like, oh, that's all garbage. It's all allegations. They didn't find anything wrong. They didn't even charge him. It's okay. But Alec Baldwin has this mishap, a horrible, terrible mishap, and people are like, hang that guy, he's a dummy liberal moron, and he should know about gun safety. He's an actor. How many times have people talked about how actors and athletes should keep your mouth shut in politics? It happens all the time. That is one thing I think is kind of happening towards the end of the year here with Matt Gaetz. All of the allegations, all of the things being said about Matt Gaetz. They're like, hey, look at Matt Gaetz. He's a pervert. He's a sexual pervert. He's really, really kind of a creepy guy. He's got that creepy guy face. No, Matt Gaetz is fine. Don't give him his own television show over on the conservative networks. Why? Because we've got to hold on to that MAGA contingent. We can't let go of that. We got to have all those people on our channels. Yeah, that's exactly what this is about. It's about a money grab. It's about a power grab. It's about positioning and posturing. Here's another one. I drew a lot of ire over my opinion on this story here. If you remember, Ethan Crumley was the school shooter of a Michigan high school, right? His parents were found guilty, sentenced to 10 to 15 years in prison in April after, after each was found guilty on 4 counts of involuntary manslaughter in separate trials. Now, for those of you who remember this story, Ethan Crumley was the gentleman he was the boy who shot up Oxford High School. And it occurred, he took a gun to school that his parents had bought for him and walked into school and shot some folks. Surveillance footage showed Ethan Crumley entering a bathroom and exiting it about a minute later holding a semi-automatic weapon and gun. Immediately afterwards, he started firing in the hallway as hundreds of students passed through, transitioning from one class to another. When the students began fleeing, he methodically and deliberately walked down the hallway and shot into classrooms and at anyone who was unable to escape until he moved on to another classroom. Due to the quick response by students and staff, Crumley was unable to actually enter any of the classrooms. According to students, a voice over the intercom alerted them to an active shooter, and their teachers started locking and barricading doors and covering windows, convincing them it was not a drill. Those teachers also should be armed, by the way. Those teachers should have guns. They should be trained, and they should be ready to defend their students. You know, the hero stories, oh, they're such a hero. They're such a hero. They shielded this child from being killed. They probably both could have lived if the teacher had a gun and shot for or aimed for mass, center mass, aim small, miss small, and took out a school shooter. But anyway, others recounted hearing loud banging sounds before they realized the noises were gunshots and quickly locked the door. One student who hid in a toilet stall recalled hearing a gun being cocked outside the bathroom. Once the school had been secured, he opened the bathroom door to find several bodies lying on the floor. 12:51, police received the first of approximately 100 911 calls about the shooting and headed to the school. Within 2 or 3 minutes of the first responder arrival on scene, Crumley was arrested and unharmed by a deputy assigned as a school resource officer and a second deputy. The assailant allegedly still had 7 rounds of ammunition loaded into his gun and 2 15-round magazines. He would have kept going. The whole shooting lasted about 5 minutes, and a total of 32 spent bullet cases were found at the school. 3 students, Madison Baldwin, 17, Tate Meyer, 16, and Hannah St. Juliana, 14, were killed at the scene, and 8 other people, including a teacher, were injured. Madison Baldwin, Tate Meyer, Hannah St. Juliana. Those names should be said a lot more than the names of the school shooter. They were killed at the scene, and 8 other people, including a teacher, were injured. Tate Meyer, who was 16, was reportedly shot while attempting to stop the gunman. He died in a police vehicle en route to the hospital. On December 1, a 4th student, 17-year-old Justin Schilling, died in the hospital from his injuries. By the night of November 30th, 3 of the injured were in critical condition, with 1 on a vent. Another was in serious condition. 3 were in stable condition. Now, why am I reading all that? Why am I spending all that time reading all of that? Because this person, this young man, had a gun that his parents bought for him. It was a Sig Sauer SP 2022 semi-automatic handgun and at least 2 15-round magazines. It was a Christmas present. It says here that Bouchard, who was the, I guess, I don't know who the name is, was said that he purchased a gun under his own name from a local shop on Black Friday, four days prior to the event. Prosecutor Karen McDonald later said that Ethan Crumley was with his father at the time of the purchase, and he posted about it on social media later that day. It was also said that Jennifer Crumley, the mother, referred to the gun as Ethan's new Christmas present in a social media post. And based on a recovered shell casings found at the school, authorities believe at least 30 shots were fired. It's unclear how he gained possession of the gun or how it brought him into the school. Michigan minors can't legally possess guns. Wait a second. You mean there was a gun law that didn't work? No way. I can't believe that there was a gun law that didn't prevent an act of gun violence. You're kidding me, right? I'm shocked here. This is my shocked face, which you would be able to see if my camera were working. But for some reason, you can't see my shocked face. You'll just have to hear it in my voice. And then... let's see. But the reason I read all of that is because some people say the parents, and when I say so many, Erica and I disagreed on this, and the bearded pastor, when he was on the show, he disagreed with this as well. I believe that it was fully right that the parents were found culpable for something like this, and that they were... Sorry, I'm sending the link to Rumble over to the Crusader Stadium chat room, which, by the way, you can join if you are on crusadechannel.com, live radio the way it should be. But the reason I'm reading this story is because I want everybody to think about, remember, and consider the details of this story. The fact that these children were killed, and that the parents were also guilty because they were negligent parents. They bought a kid who had mental illness. Is not a joke. It's a real thing. A young man had mental illness issues. He had problems, and now now the parents are going to get off scot-free for not doing anything about it. No, that I don't agree with that. I don't think it's right. I don't think it's proper that the kids are mistreated by their parents, and the parents receive no responsibility for it. Now, we hear the arguments. Oh, but the gun manufacturers are next. They've been trying to go after gun manufacturers for decades, and you haven't been able to go anywhere. They haven't been able to do anything with it. But I'm saying that it's time. I am a strong supporter of the Second Amendment. I believe we should all have guns. I think that the teachers in the schools should be armed just as well. Absolutely. The teachers should be armed. So I'm not arguing for gun laws that take away guns from people at all. I think young people should be taught how to use their weapons. I think that this should be an active part of community work. It should be an active part of a father leading his family and a mother as well. I believe that this should be the gun culture should not be so afraid of weapons and so afraid of guns. We shouldn't have that culture. We should have a culture that encourages the usage of weapons, encourages the safe usage of weapons, right? And in some instances, doesn't allow certain whack jobs to have weapons. But all in all, if in a situation like this, when something could have been prevented, and you know it could have been prevented, if a parent would have said something or done something and prevented it from happening, then I believe that the parents should be held culpable. Like, you were there. You know, we have Good Samaritan laws that are also put in place to protect people and to encourage people and to remind people that you really should do something to help people out. Right? But to allow these parents to get away scot-free without any issues, without any problems, with just like, oh, you know, that sucks, your kid was jacked up in the head, he's going to jail. Now you all can just go on out and do what you wanted to do when you didn't have kids in the first place. I don't think that's right. You can tell me that if you agree or disagree over in the comments as well. You can do that on the Crusader Stadium chat room, or you can drop those in the Rumble chat or on YouTube as well. And I will be happy to address those concerns. Here's another story. 5 people were charged in Matthew Perry's ketamine death. 5 people were charged in August 2024 in connection with last year's ketamine death of Friends star Matthew Perry. Eric Fleming, who admitted in court documents that he distributed the ketamine that killed Perry, and the actor's live-in assistant, Kenneth Iwamasa, who admitted in court documents to administering the ketamine on the day Perry died, pleading guilty. Iwamasa and Fleming face up to 15 years and 25 years, respectively. 2 doctors among those charged. Dr. Mark Chavez admitted to selling ketamine. Dr. Salvador Placencia, a licensed medical doctor, he is known for at least 20 years with the understanding that it would be sold to Perry, who was struggling with the ketamine addiction. According to prosecutors, Chavez has pled guilty and faces up to 10 years in prison. 2 defendants pleaded not guilty, Placencia and Javine Sangha, a woman allegedly known as the Ketamine Queen, who is accused of selling Perry the batch of ketamine that killed him, the Department of Justice said. Sangha and Placencia face charges including conspiracy to distribute ketamine and are set to go on trial in March 2025 if convicted of all charges. They would face a minimum of 10 years and to a maximum life in prison. September, Georgia high school shooting. Another one, a 14-year-old student, Colt Gray, is accused of opening fire at an Appalachia high school in Georgia in September, killing 2 students and 2 teachers and injuring several others. The suspect's father, Colin Gray, is also facing charges for allegedly knowingly allowing his son to possess a weapon used in the shooting, according to GBI. Sorry, I don't know why I jumped to the Matthew Perry one. I didn't cover that. But it says here that investigators believe the teen received the AR-style gun used in the shooting as a Christmas present from his father. The father and son have both pleaded not guilty. Now, why would we allow this guy to continue I say, quoting fingers, to be free? Why would we allow this gentleman to continue to be free if he bought the kid the gun? There are signs. All right. This isn't like, oh, my son is a great kid. He's awesome. I'm going to buy him this gift. What the hell? My kid shot up a school? You knew. There were signs. If you're watching, if you're paying attention. And that's the thing. You got to pay attention to your kids, right? You got to pay attention to your kids. You can't just say, oh, I'm a parent and I'm here and my kids are there and I don't know what they're doing and they're playing on their phones all the time. You know, kids, you can't do that. You got to be involved in your kids' lives. You got to be able to pick out details and things. You got to know when your child is struggling with issues. Be a parent. Wake up. Stop being some jackoff that floats through the world thinking that everything is hunky-dory or not paying attention to anybody else around you. Look at your kids. Sit down, have meals with them, talk to them. Have them put down their phones and look you in the eye. Ask them what they're thinking. You know how powerful that is in itself? You're just you're just sitting there on the couch. Maybe you're scrolling, they're scrolling, which is perfectly fine. Phones aren't horrible. They're not sinful. They're also not going to destroy relationships. They're phones. They're electronic devices. You're enjoying something on your phone. Your kid's enjoying something on their phone, or you're watching TV, or you're asking, hey, what are you thinking? What's on your mind? That creates an atmosphere and a climate of, my parents care what I'm thinking about. It doesn't have to be in the throes of a fight. It doesn't have to be when I look like I'm depressed. It's just a normal Saturday afternoon. You're hanging out. You're just sitting there. And the conversation's lull. It's not a time you have to, you want to constantly say things to each other. But in these situations, you ask your kid, what are you thinking? What's on your mind? That lets them know, hey, my parents are paying attention. Hey, my parents care. You ask your kid enough in circumstances or situations what they're thinking, what's on their mind, what's going through their head. After a while, the relationship you start to garner with your children is one of mutual love and respect. They think, hey, I can talk to my dad. I can talk to my mom. I might be able to talk to my dad easier about, like boys can talk to their dad easier about sexual questions or issues, or girls than they can their mom, and vice versa, which is fine. That's how it's supposed to be. But for heaven's sakes, pay attention to your child. It was, but that's very frustrating. And Timmy says here, got to pay attention to your parents too. Yeah, kids, but and if your kid, thinks my parents don't like me, something is wrong. Now, I don't. Kids think of things and they do things and they say things and things are weird, right? I understand that. Not all kids, not every time a kid says something isn't true, you've got to be able to fix that and dispel those myths that a kid has. But if your kid thinks, "Hey, my parents don't like me," I don't think my parents want me around. I think my parents would rather me not be around. Like Ethan Crumley's parents, texts ignored. Nowhere in the hundreds of texts that they got, or the amount of texts that they got, was there ever a moment where the mother said, "Hey, I love you." My oldest is in college, and it doesn't happen every night. But I try to text her, "Good night, I love you." It doesn't happen every night. I'm not declaring I'm perfect, and I'm not saying my kids are perfect. My kids are pretty freaking awesome, though. And it has nothing to do with me. It's because their mom is awesome. But you scroll through the texts, and you can see where they told me that they love me, unsolicited. And they do the same thing with their mom. Now, again, I'm not saying that I'm a perfect dad. I'm far from anything considered perfect, especially when it comes to being a dad. But I just got to say that if you don't have regular texts or conversations with your kid that begin or end with "I love you," "You're valuable to me," "I'm proud of you," I don't think you're doing it right. I could buy my kids a gun. Would I let them keep it loaded in their room? But I know enough about my kids to know what could or couldn't be done. I love you too, Timmy the pilot. I love you too. And your alter ego, Timmy Doofus. I love both of you. Deb says, I always tell my kids I love them and they do the same. See, that's what you do. And I'm pretty sure your kids are older than my kids, Deb. You've got to be able to have that relationship with your kids. You got to care. People like, this generation's so screwed up. Every generation always bitches about the generation that comes after them. It's just a thing we do. It's like turning 40 and piss at a moment about back pain or knee pain or sleeping pain or whatever it is. But when you look at the kids and you say the kids are jacked up, well, I tell you what, their parents were your children at one point. What did you do to screw them up? All right, folks, we're going to take a quick break, try to get this camera fixed. When we get back, we're going to find out how to detect a sexual predator by scent. And we'll be talking about bad theology and such. You all have a great moment. We'll be back in just a minute. Don't go anywhere, please. I say, please, my psyche won't take it. Ah, crap. Hold on a second. All right, here we go. Oh, man, let me see if I can get this fixed in 2 minutes. Oh, man. I don't know if y'all can see that, but the caricature thing of me with the claymation thing, yeah, I love that. Oh, this might be a mistake, but I want to do something here. All right, folks, welcome back to the breakdown. Thank you so much for staying with us. Um, I am so sorry about the technical issues there, and I'm also sorry that I'm off the clock today. The camera is working, but for some reason, it is not being picked up by the um, software here that I'm using. So for some reason, I've lost it, but we're going to continue to roll on because that's what we do in broadcasting. We just keep moving on and keep moving forward, right? All right. So this hour, we talked about a couple of the news stories there. We talked about, well, here, just a couple of quick news stories that dropped in here. Diddy was arrested. My wife is all over the things about Diddy. And all over the whole story because it's absolutely insane. The entire story is right. Then we also have the Menendez brothers fight for freedom. Did anybody watch that Menendez special on Netflix? I'm pretty sure it was Netflix. Did anybody watch that? Aside from being really creepy, it was graphic. Like they were really graphic in the portrayal of the murder scene of the parents, which was incredible for a horror aficionado like me, or a wannabe aficionado. Before I go on, though, I just want to read real quick and tell you about the sponsorship that we have here, the sponsorship here that Rumble has. Rumble is incredibly important to the survival of free speech. When Rumble first started in 2013, they built a platform for the small creator. They didn't censor or have biases. They were for fair and treated all creators equally. No one thought platforms should censor political conversation or censor opinions on COVID, but they did. Facebook admitted they felt pressure to the Biden and Harris administration. Rumble did not. They held the line. They are attacked daily for giving us a voice to talk to you. And they are attacked in corporate media. They are attacked by governments like France. They are attacked from brand advertisers who refuse to work with them. Corporate America is fighting to remove free speech. Rumble is fighting to keep it. Rumble won't survive with brand advertisers. They don't get much of those. Watching our show, The Breakdown on Rumble, is the best that they can ask from you. But if you really believe in this fight, and if you have the means, one major way you can help Rumble survive is by joining Rumble Premium. Join the community that believes in the First Amendment and believes in our human right to free speech. Rumble is offering $10 off of the promo code STUDIO when you purchase an annual membership. Go to rumble.com/premium and use the promo code STUDIO. As mentioned, if you have the means and believe in the cause, now is the time to join Rumble Premium. If you don't have the means, well, I'm just happy you enjoy this. You're joining us on Rumble. You can also, so go ahead and join Rumble Premium as well. That would be extremely helpful to them and for the future of free speech. You can also head on over to aaronbarker.substack.com. There are paid subscription options over there if you want to continue to see the breakdown roll on. I mean, it really is. We have a paid subscriber. It's greatly appreciated. We do the show. Eric and I continue to do the show, sticking with it and moving ahead because we love to do this. We love to talk. We love to bring information to people. We love to have the conversations. We'd love to make information known to other folks. It's really, really important that we expand the means of conversation and the ability to have conversation. I don't know who it was that said this years ago, but I latched onto it because I liked it so much. And that was that the art of conversation is dying. Like it really is dying. The ability to have an exchange of ideas with a person, to discuss something with a person, and to not be afraid of them getting mad and shutting down or refusing to answer your questions. And I'm the kind of person that believes that there's nothing off topics. There's nothing off limits. There's some things that I probably won't talk about because it's a little crass. But when it comes to circumstances like, intellectual conversations, especially when it comes to questions that are related to the Bible and questions that are related to faith and questions that are related to our everyday lives, absolutely. And I have been accosted this year because some of the questions that I've brought up and some of the concerns that I've raised and some of the conversations that I have been trying to have. And I've been told, don't have those around people that don't believe. Don't have those conversations around non-believers. Don't have those around people who have weaker faith. And I'm like, no, I disagree totally. I think every person, regardless of the stage of life, needs to have these conversations and needs to hear the conversations because I'm not a smart man. I'm not. You all are listening to this show and you can point out the times when I'm kind of dumb. But if I'm asking these questions, if I'm wondering these questions, if I'm considering these things, smarter people out there, which is the majority of this audience, except for Timmy, are smarter than me. And they're having these questions as well. They're having these concerns as well. But we do that and we hope that you like it and really appreciate. I don't think people know how much I appreciate and how much of a dopamine hit it is to look up and see that there's more than 3 people watching the show. And those 3 people just happen to be either the hosts or some rando on Facebook. We all know Larry. That was a big story of 2024 for the Breakdown crew. Larry was our troll over on YouTube. I miss him. He's gone. He was helping out with the algorithm and boosting the show and stuff. And he would come in and just like with a sledgehammer and slam everything around and break windows and bust tables and all that stuff. And it was unnecessary, but it was really a lot of fun, But those conversations need to be had, and they need to be discussed, and they need to be raised. Here's this really interesting video that I found, and I want to make sure this is. I don't want to laugh. I shouldn't laugh. Hold on a second here. Let me go ahead and get this. This was on TikTok. All right, and we are all, as we should be. Come on. Where did it go? Okay. Rumble Premium. Hold on just a second. Rumble Studio is giving me some conniption fits today. It really, really is. I'm trying to share. I shared a video earlier. And now for some reason, it's not letting me share a video. Oh, man. Just craziness right here. All right. Well, there was a video and a guy was recording a Coca-Cola truck, a semi truck, and cops were all around it. The guy was saying in the video, the truck was full of kids. I found this. This isn't right. And it's got these cop cars around this truck, and they've got kids, around the truck, or, they think they have kids around. I don't see any kids in the video, but he's playing this video. And turns out it was a toy drive. It was a toy drive that that the local authorities were a part of, and they were trying they were raising they were getting toys for kids, and some guy presented it on social media as if there were kids being sex trafficked. And they were like, dude, man, you got it all wrong. This is a toy drive, and we're trying to get toys for kids for Christmas. Oh, that was that. I thought that was funny. It would have been much better if you could have seen the video, but the video was pretty much just the guy freaking out about it. All right, let's see here. What should you do if your neighbor asks you to stop praying for them? This is a New York Times story that I came across. So December 27th, actually, was a story. But the headline is, "My neighbor won't stop praying for me." It says here that, oh, hold on a second here. It says here that my neighbor is an 85-year-old elderly person. She's a very sweet woman, but she keeps telling me that she's going to pray for me. My issue is that she's very religious and I'm not at all. She prays for me and says it in person, texts, and emails for even the most minor situations. I've told her my view of religion and that she doesn't need to pray for me. She said that she has to, otherwise she's not following the Bible. I'm trying to ignore this, but it's really bothering me that she can't respect my wishes. So if you were praying for somebody and they came to you and they said, hey, stop praying for me. I don't want you to pray for me. I don't want your prayers. Would you look at that person and say, I'm still going to pray for you? Or would you just be like, okay, I'll honor your wishes? Somebody over at tippinsights.com, Tip Insights, I guess, TIPP Insights, said that a liberal jerk melts down over elderly neighbor's prayers. It says, after you pick your jaw up off the floor, note how this cuts against the argument liberals have long used to smugly dismiss any conservative concerns in the culture war. Why do you care about what two men do in the privacy of their home? Why do you care what a woman does with her body? Why do you care if someone identifies as a man or a woman or anything in between? How does it affect you? Oh, you know what? I wonder if that could be the reason. Why do you care what a woman does with a body? Why do you care if someone identifies as a man, woman, or anything in between? How does it affect you? The same could easily be said here. Why do you care that someone prays for you? If you're a non-believer, how could it possibly affect you? Mind your own business, fascist. It's actually pretty funny because it's interesting that a person would be like that. You know, somebody is just being kind or being considerate. They want to tell you, hey, I'm praying for you. You know, because how many times do we say that to people, but we actually don't pray for them? How many times we say, well, I'll pray for you. I'll say a prayer for you. No, you're not really praying for me. I know you're not really praying for me. I know you're not going to say a prayer for me. But, but if somebody told me like, I don't want you to pray for me, I'd be like, oh, you know what? Good. Because I got so many other people that want me to pray for them or so many other things that I could be praying about. You've just really made my day. You've really made this a lot easier. So in those circumstances, I think I would be just fine in saying to somebody, okay, I won't pray for you. But what would you say? What would you do? Would this be something that you would also be willing to forego if somebody wanted you to not pray for them? Would you say, okay, I won't pray for you. It's all good to go. We're fine. Let's see here if it will let me now. Let's move on to this other story. I had a couple of, let's go ahead and go into bad theology. Before I do, everybody is really concerned. I was going to show that video, but I'm unable to now about the kids being trafficked. And they're like, oh, goodness gracious. All these kids being trafficked. How can this be going on in our country? How can this be going on in our society? What is going on with this? Why is this happening? What's the deal with this? And there is a way. We have predator websites. We can find out if there are sexual predators in our neighborhood or sexual predators that are around our churches. We can find out if a person's been convicted. We can see where that person is, follow pictures and videos and such, or pictures at least of them through the years so that they can't change your identity. But here's one way, one surefire way for you to be able to detect a sexual predator, and that's by scent. Dogs can pick up scent. Could you imagine a dog just being able to be like, sexual predator, and they could just tell? The best way to do that here is by purchasing the Donald Trump cologne. You can wear that. President Donald Trump on Sunday used a photo of himself sitting next to First Lady Jill Biden to announce a new line of fragrances in his Trump Truth social app. A fragrance your enemies can't resist, and a fragrance that will send off sexual predator vibes. It's very easy to do that. Just go to gettrumpfragrances.com. That's the website where you can actually purchase the $200 bottle of cologne. Can you imagine going to church and people smelling like this $200 bottle of cologne, carrying the Trump Bible? Very good Bible. Probably the best Bible you've ever seen. A lot of better impressions than that, but smelling like it, having the Bible like it. I mean, I'm sure Trump has one of his own Bibles, but he never opens it. I'm very positive he never opens it. All right, folks, let's get down to bad theology. It's time for us to dive into a lot of...
You're teaching some bad theology. Your bad theology's annoying me. Oh, you're teaching some bad theology. Repentance is the only cure that you need.
All right, folks, this is the part of the program where we talk about really bad theology. Now, I had several videos that I was going to show here, some interesting videos, but I can't do those today. Well, because I'm having issues with this. Now, a lot of people be like, that's God telling you don't need to do your show today. But I'm not feeling that. I just video issues. You all can look at the wonderful claymation picture of me on top of that in the radio studio celebrating a new year, which we're coming up on. Things are going to be great for 2024. As a matter of fact, Kent Christmas. That's a guy's name. Kent Christmas. He's a pastor. He's sharing what the Lord placed on his heart for us to know about 2025. He says, a couple of days ago, I was praying and the Lord really dropped this in my spirit. He said, 2024 was a year of battle. 2025 is going to be a year of spoil. Christmas says he believes the Lord is getting ready to release his treasures for his children who have stayed faithful to him in the middle of struggles. I want to know. I want that to get in your spirit because I believe that God is getting ready to release the rewards for all of us who have stayed faithful in the battle. Says Christmas. This prophetic message of encouragement comes right at a time when the entire world has been celebrating the birth of Jesus, something Christmas points out as miraculous in itself. As divided as our nation has been, we have agnostics, we have atheists, we have Christians, we have non-believers, we have statistics that say 96% of Americans celebrate Christmas. That's an amazing statistic for a Christian nation that really has departed a lot from the faith, he says. With America seeking revival and repentance, perhaps this coming year of rewards is a reflection of the ultimate gift God has ever given to us, his one and only Son. You know what? The Lord, I'm feeling the Spirit right now. The Lord is saying something. Oh, I feel it. This guy's full of crap. I'm feeling that right now in my spirit. That just dropped in my spirit as I was standing here. I feel in my spirit that Kent Christmas is full of Kent crap. All these prosperity gospel preachers saying these things about, oh, you've been faithful during the struggle. God will now bless you with material abundance. That's garbage. Don't listen to people that says that. Don't listen to people who say that. If people who say that, they really have no understanding of the Bible. Because what they're going to do is they're going to point to the book of Job, which a lot of scholars say was not even, it is a story and not an actual occurrence. There's a lot of things in there that people are like, what the crap? You know, the narratives, the questions that were asked by Job's three friends, it's like, hey, a lot of scholars believe that those are written afterwards. That they were added to the story, that this is just a myth that was told to try to teach a lesson, because it really does not teach good things about God. The book of Job does not. I don't personally think it does. It doesn't teach the character of God as revealed in the New Testament. You know, you look at the book of Job, and the book of Job says, God was in heaven The devil was there. The devil challenges God. God succumbs to a temptation and says, "Oh yeah, go ahead and try Job. Yeah, he won't bash me." So Job, the devil does all the stuff. We know all of that. And then Job's like, dude, what the crap? I just want to know what's going on. He didn't curse God. He's just like, I want to know what's happening. Why is this going on? What did I do? And his friends were there with him and they were keeping silent. They weren't saying anything. And then finally they spoke up and started saying, well, God doesn't punish people unless it's because of sin. And God is telling you that you suck as a human being. He's going to crush you and destroy you and blah, blah, blah. And Job's like, look, I'm a righteous guy. I haven't done anything wrong. If he were here, I'd plead my case. I just want to know what's going on. God shows up, sidesteps the issue, doesn't answer the question that Job asks him, and then makes Job feel like crap because he even thought of the question in the first place. There's really a lot of gaslighting going on that. And then in the New Testament, you have Jesus who's saying, come unto me, all you who are heavy laden and all of you who are burdened, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you, for my yoke is easy, my burden is light. You know, it says that God loved the world that he gave his only begotten son, that whosoever believes in him should not perish but have everlasting life. You know, how often he wanted to gather together his children under his wings like a hen does and broods for her children or her chicks, right? And now, I have no idea what this is. Anyway, all of that, as presented in the Old Testament, in the book of Job, does not have that same kind of character of God in the New Testament. And it's just weird to me. And then people will use that theology and they'll impose that on you and they'll say, oh, well, God is just testing you. He's just testing you. Is he testing me, or is this just a great cosmic gamble to see which one of us are going to break? You know? But that's a question that a lot of people have. And then they will use something like this, be like, if you stay faithful during trials, if you keep giving your money to this ministry, if you keep giving your talents and you keep blah, 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 all that stuff that a lot of these churches use to manipulate folks and make them feel like they're going to get a reward or prize in the end. A lot of that stuff is just manipulative, especially these prosperity guys. I mean, you want to talk about something that really sticks in my craw. It's when somebody tells me that if you want to be if you want prosperity, you got to give. And I just think it's garbage. So don't listen to people like that. Don't listen to those conversations. Don't let them rule you or run your life. Because I can tell you, there's nothing in the Bible that says if you give to this particular ministry that you're going to be blessed. There is talking about giving with a generous heart to the church so that they can do the work of the gospel. But I don't see how having a multi-million-dollar mansion, bragging about all of the jets that you have and the watches that you have, having a home that costs more than the GDP of a developing country, and you want to say that this is somehow biblical. That's actually the complete opposite of what Jesus says. He says, blessed are the poor. Blessed are the hungry. Blessed are those who eat. Blessed are those who are hated and cast out. He doesn't say blessed are the rich. Blessed are the famous. Blessed are the prosperous. You know, but then that raises other questions, because as you read the Old Testament, there are passages of Scripture that indicate material wealth and blessings is a part of God's a part of the fact that God blesses you and has favor on you. That's just weird. What's up with that? But you've got to be able to look at that stuff critically. You've got to be able. It's not really a conversation to be having today. It's just a lot of these things that are thrown out. There's a big conversation I want to get into after the bottom of the hour. That's going to be that's about women preachers, and I'm going to be talking about that because I posted some stuff on Facebook recently that really kind of annoyed some folks and got into their craw, and it really kind of goes into all of this because these considerations of what culture says and what culture is spoken about and what culture has deemed appropriate or not appropriate, etc. these are really just they're really important conversations that are necessary and need to be discussed and need to be had. And you can check out my Facebook page. I post a lot of these on there. And it's a lot of fun because we have a lot of great conversations. Just ask Audrey. She really interacts with those and she loves having those conversations. It's a lot of fun. Also, there is a video that I did not know was pretty popular over on Instagram. I woke today and there were multiple comments on it. I really wish I could play it, but it was a clip from a show a couple of weeks ago where Eric and I were talking about the Satan statue that was put up in the town square in New Hampshire, I believe. And in that, people got mad and tore it down. And the Satanists were upset. And Erica pointed out that, you know what, if you're destroying somebody else's property, that he really should be like, yeah, you gave into your hatred and your pride and your lust for power and your lust for being right. And this really should be making Satan happy. It's like, hey, here's a pretty statue. And now Satan's like, oh, they tore down my statues. Why did they tear down my statues? I'm very, very sad. That made me very sad. Well, you're Satan. You're the God of darkness, right? Why are you bothered? Why are Satanists bothered? They really shouldn't be. They should be like, touche, Christians. Touche, iconoclasts. Touche for destroying the Satan statue. They were like, we should have thought about that. Satan's like, hey, call the head of the Satanist church right now, please. Give me somebody, and give me somebody while I'm waiting. And Satan's like, hey, what's up with this? You putting up a statue of me that was made out of a mannequin with a Halloween mask you bought from Halloween Express when they were closing down for the year. What's up with that? And you had me holding lilacs. What's up with me holding lilacs? Hold on a second. He should probably be like, what's up with me holding lilacs? I don't understand. Why, I don't even like purple. And a mannequin? What's up with the mannequin? I don't get that at all either. And the mask. Did you get there after Halloween Express got to their 95% off sale? Because that really was not an appropriate mask for you to wear. I don't look anything like that. I'm actually much better looking. Haven't you seen my television show? Right? That would be the phone call from Satan. Satan's on the phone. It's for you. I don't want to take it. Tell him I'm not here. He knows you're here. He knows you're here. Let's see. Audrey says, yeah, I have fun with those conversations. It's just funny that the only people that come at me are the men. It is pretty funny. It is pretty funny that the only, and I say funny, and I say funny loosely. I say funny very loosely because it's really kind of upsetting. It just bothers me when I see that kind of stuff because it makes me angry that they feel so comfortable speaking about or to women like that. Like it's okay for them to disrespect women. You know what I mean? Like it's okay for them to like their wives are okay with them attacking other women on Facebook. I wonder how many men, if their wives saw what they posted on Facebook and how they spoke to other people, I wonder what they would say. I wonder if that would make the women would be like, what are you doing? What is this, talking to another woman like that? You know, it's that's one thing. And even, you know, and I'll be just 100% honest with y'all. This is, I have we had a chat with myself and Erica and another host that we had on the show for a little while. We had a private chat on Facebook that we would share show prep and stories and information, news thing, and then not ideas, but also like, you know, show logistics and things when people were going to be here, that kind of thing. And we would share that. And then when the other host left, I started just saying, hey, I'm going to just message Erica because there's no reason for that other person to see what her show prep is. They're not on the show anymore. So I was like, hey, well, I'm just going to message Erica. I knew she was fine with it, but I told Allison, I was like, hey, just a heads up. Erica and I are going to have a private chat now on Facebook. It's the show. We're going to be talking about the show and other stuff. I mean, we're friends, but I was like, Allison knows the code to my phone. At any time, she could walk up and say, give me your phone. I would give her my phone and she could open it up with the password. She could go into every single one of my apps and she could check everything on my phone. And I'm completely fine with it. It's totally fine for me to do that or for her to do that. I have no problem with it. She can see my comments on Facebook. You know, she sees who my friends are. She sees what photos I like or dislike or anything like that, you know, and I'm very sensitive about that stuff on my own anyway. Like when women post pictures of themselves, you know, in front of a pool or something like that, I'm like, just keep scrolling. I'm not gonna like that or dislike that, just nothing. Just keep going because it's creepy to me to do that. But you think about the amount of men out there who are having these conversations with and attacking other women in this way. I wonder two things. First, if their women did find out, because in the town it is well known. When they got home at night, their fat and psychopathic wives would thrash them within inches of their lives. Either they've got that, or anybody who got that reference, you get bonus points with me. Or they treat their women like that too. They disrespect their woman to talk to her like that as well. So, hey. Sorry. But what was I saying? I lost my train of thought there. Rambling for 2 hours by myself. I like this actually. I miss Erica because she keeps me on track. But anyway, yeah, but this is the way that they treat their wives. That's probably the way they do them. They're probably the same guys that are saying, "I suffer not a woman to teach nor usurp authority over man." That's why I didn't go to break, because I didn't play the track. Okay, there we go. Merry Christmas to you as well. You're also listening to us on the Crusade Channel live at Radio the Way It Should Be at crusadechannel.com. So I thought I was going to be going to break in a minute, so I was just trying to add some fluff there until I did, but I forgot I didn't play my track because I was late getting back this hour. So here we go. This was a post I made a couple of weeks ago. Did Paul really forbid women to preach? Scholarly consensus is that Paul, an influential figure in earlier Christianity, likely only authored 7 of the 13 books attributed him in the New Testament. And this revelation, or this piece of information, sparks fascinating questions. How does this influence our understanding of Christian doctrine? What are the implications for the passages that restrict women from preaching, which Paul is now thought not to have written? Could this reshape long-standing interpretations of faith? What do you think? How might this impact contemporary perspectives on the role of women in the church? And I got some reactions on that. I got some comments on it. And as Audrey mentioned, she was the one who was commenting, and and the guys were jumping on her, etc. About that. Figuratively speaking, by the way, figuratively speaking. But I posted for a couple of questions for a couple of reasons. First, there is, and I had known about this, but I didn't realize that there were so many books of the New Testament that Pauline authorship was questioned. And when I say Pauline authorship, that's the authorship of Paul and whether or not he wrote certain books of the New Testament. The authorship of the pastoral epistles, 1st and 2nd Timothy and Titus, is disputed, as a matter of fact. And it is stated, some people believe that the Apostle Paul didn't even write that, but that was books written by people claiming to be Paul. And the reason they claimed to be Paul was pretty much like the reason that somebody would create a false Facebook profile of a celebrity or well-known person, and then that would allow them some sort of clout. So they were essentially clout banging. You're right. On this post, Scotty Roberts said the exact same thing. And Audrey said something, and they didn't say anything. Oh, I'm sorry. Hold on a second. I put the wrong comment up there. They didn't even say anything to Scotty. They just ignored him because he's a dude, I guess. This is really weird. I'm drinking my Monster, and I started drinking this at 8:30. Typically, this is done 8:30, 8:45-ish. Typically, this is done. I drink one of these every Saturday for my show. It's gone by like 9:15 or something. I'm almost at 11 o'clock, and I'm still drinking on this. But anyway, so here we have the Apostle Paul. The authorship of these books is in question. If the authorship of these books is in question, does that raise the question that, hey, Is this really legitimate? Now, people will have some questions about this. I did post up some other stuff about Pauline apostleship, and some people came at me, and immediately what they did is they started saying, "Well, like when you say, did God say women can't preach?" And they're, or was that Paul? And they're like, "Well, here it is, right there in the Bible. Just read it. It's right there." Then you're like, "Well, but it also says that Paul, an apostle, at the beginning of the book, wrote that, but there is a lot of question and debate about whether or not he did." So if you are a Bible believing Christian and you want to know the truth without knowing the full scope of that argument, can you claim that to be truth when it opens up with a potential lie? If I tell you, "Oh, well, I'm Bill Paxton." I don't know why that's the first name that popped in my head. He's dead. But I'm Bill Paxton. And Bill Paxton says that you were supposed to do 150 jumping jacks in the morning and 25 burpees. And you're like, "Oh, wow, the great Bill Paxton said that we should do this." And everybody's like, "Oh, Bill Paxton said it. I heard him say it." Not only did he say it, he wrote it down. And look, it's in a post on Facebook. And people are like, "Hold up just a second. Bill Paxton died like 10 years ago." And they're like, "It doesn't matter. It still says he said it. It has authority that can bind whatever I believe and think, and I have to do exactly what it says." And you're like, "But Bill Paxton's dead. And they're just doing that to make you think it's him." That's the same situation that a lot of people look at when it comes to these pastoral epistles. The pastoral epistles are the ones that are written to the bishops or the pastors of the churches, to the elders, or the qualifications of the elders, how to lead a church, how to run a church, etc. And those are written evidently or potentially by Paul, or he has been the classically accepted author of those books because it does attest to his authorship at the beginning of those. And then, but looking at that and wondering, hey, is this really legit? Is this really true? I think that's a consideration that we have to take in when we're constructing doctrine, because this isn't merely us having just a regular conversation about things. This isn't us just talking about how we function at a party or in public, or whether or not we should wear socks or with sandals or not. This isn't a small issue. This is a big issue. You're creating doctrine. And when you create doctrine like this, not only are you creating doctrine, but you're also creating behaviors that are then enacted at churches. And when those behaviors are enacted at churches, that gets carried out, and people can either be assisted or they can be hurt by this. So when these revelations come to light, it's good to stop and think. Now, that's the first contestation I have. The first question I will raise about the pastoral epistles, now that I'm reassessing and looking at all this. And I'm wondering, well, did Paul really say that? If Paul didn't say that, if somebody else said it and it was a lie, then we're binding women to not preach or teach. And God never commanded that, right? I think that's a good, healthy debate to have, a good question to have. And a lot of well-meaning folks, this would have been me 6 months ago, would have been like, well, it's in the Bible. If it's in the Bible, we trust the Bible. There's unificality in the teaching of Scripture. There is sola scriptura, the understanding that it is Scripture alone. The traditions handed down by the churches, that this is the Word of God. This was the accepted teachings of the apostles, or written by the apostles, or close associations with them. And this is their attestation of what happened at the time. And that the Old Testament was already firmly established, and that the Bible that they used at the time was the Greek Septuagint, and Jesus would have been reading from Isaiah, et cetera, and that he confirmed the teaching of the Scriptures because he quoted the Old Testament, and that he opened up from the Scriptures where he was when he was on the road to Emmaus, and he ran into his disciples, and he told them, "This is me, I'm risen from the dead." And he opened from the Scriptures at the very beginning of the Word and poured it out. He didn't actually say it was me. He just told them that they were worried about Jesus being dead. He presented himself to them as somebody else. Does that mean that he identified as someone else? Was Jesus transgender? Heads are exploding. I'm just playing. Jesus identified as a gardener. Okay. Anyway, but the people, and again, that is a traditional and historical understanding of how we got the Bible. That it is there, it exists, it has been delivered to us. We received that. We didn't choose that. And there's a difference between Catholic doctrine of the Church, of the Scriptures and the way it was assembled, and the Protestant doctrine of the Scriptures and the way it was assembled. The Church on the Catholic Church says that they gave us the Bible, that without the church you wouldn't have the Bible. And on the Protestant side, it says that it was received, that these are widely read books of the New Testament, and they had apostolic authority, they had theological continuity, and that these are widely accepted and believed and read and celebrated by the churches. Therefore, we have all of this. But then you ask the question, what about all the other texts of Scripture? Because there was no Bible at the time when Peter was saying that Paul was writing Scripture. There was no Bible at that time at all, right? Okay, so that's part of it, and I'm not bashing the people that believe that at all. I mean, that is a position that is, I mean, it's a very tenable position. It's a very defendable position on both sides of the aisle on that, either the Catholic understanding of the reception of the Bible or the deliverance of the Bible, or the opposite, the reception of it. Regardless, it's a very defendable position, and has been in usage for a lot of people, and it's done a lot of people a lot of good around the world. So I'm not saying it's bad. I'm not saying it's stupid. I'm not saying that people are dumb. I'm not saying that at all. I'm just saying now I want to challenge that a little bit. I want to poke the bear. I want to push on that bruise. I want to find out what it is about it, right? But here we have, every time I move my chair, it creaks a little bit, and it sounds like my backup track is starting and like I got to shut up. But so we have just a few minutes left here, and I want to continue on with this. In the New Testament of 1 Timothy 2, and I'm not trying to be a Bible teacher here. I just want to talk about this discussion here. I don't have, I'm not going to seminary. I am not a pastor. I am a layman, right? I'm a lame man. That's the derivative of the word. The etymology of the word is layman. It turned into lame man. But I'm just a guy who's trying to figure stuff out. But in 1 Timothy chapter 2, it says, I desire, this is evidently the Apostle Paul. It says, I desire that then in every place the men should pray, lifting up holy hands without anger or quarreling. Also, that women should adorn themselves modestly and sensibly in seemly apparel, not with braided hair or gold or pearls or costly attire, but by good deeds, as befits women who profess religion. Verse 11, let a woman learn in silence with all submissiveness. I permit no woman to teach or to have authority over men. She is to keep silent. For Adam was formed first, then Eve, and Adam was not deceived, but the woman was deceived and became a transgressor. Yet women will be saved through bearing children if she continues in faith and love and holiness with modesty. So here's my question. Those are challenging questions to some folks out there. First, why do we look at the passage that said, I permit not a woman to teach nor have authority over men, and to keep silent? But we don't look a few verses ahead of that said women should adorn themselves modestly and sensibly in seemly apparel, not with braided hair or gold or pearls or costly attire, but by good deeds as befits women who profess religion. Why do we not tell women not to wear jewelry? Well, because it's a cultural thing. Okay. If that's a cultural thing, what changes? We literally between the period in verse 10, the number 11, and the capital L. Let a woman learn in silence with all submissiveness. What's the difference? What changed in culture 2,000 years later? What changed? What changed in culture that said it's, well, women, they can wear whatever they want to wear, as long as it's modest, and as long as they're not showing too much boob or too much butt or too much leg, we're fine with that. But, women just, you can wear jewelry. And the Bible says not with braided hair or gold or pearls or costly attire. I mean, why? Why is that not applicable? But then telling a woman to shut up and learn in silence is. All right. And then the other thing I have about this is I permit no woman to teach or to have authority over man. It doesn't say to teach and have authority. It says or. So there's two different things there. What is or in the English language? What is that called? It's a conjunction, right? Yeah, it's a conjunction. It links alternatives. Used to link alternatives, introducing a synonym or explanation of a preceding word or phrase. So when it says here, I permit not a woman to teach. I permit no woman to teach or to have authority over men. That's saying, okay, first, women shouldn't teach. That's part one. But then it's the wonderful, oh, well, they can teach other women. And then they can teach children. And they can teach groups of men, but as long as they are not being authoritative with it, right? They're not telling a man they have to listen to them, okay? But it says, I permit no woman to teach. It does not give an exception there. You're negotiating with the text. If you say, I permit not a woman to teach, I permit no woman to teach, but only in these cases, that's not there in the text. It's not anywhere in the text at all. It's not only is it in 1 Timothy, but it is nowhere else in the Bible, right? This is the only place that has this. So when it says, why aren't you following that? Why is it okay to have women Sunday school teachers and women teaching at conferences that are traditionally male run, but they're making an exception? And then it says, or to have authority over men. Okay. Well, if a woman is a choir director, she has the authority over a man to say, well, you can't sing this part, or you have to sing that part. If a woman is a director of the play and there's a man in there as a cast member, she has the authority to tell that guy, no, you can't do this. You have to do this other thing. I want you to go over here. I have authority to tell you what to do, when to come on stage, when not to come on stage, what to do in this situation. And then people will say, well, no, it's authority in doctrinal matters. It doesn't say that. It doesn't say that at all. It says authority over men. You're not allowed to have authority over men. You're negotiating with the text now. You're saying that this text can't mean that. I don't want that text to mean this. That text has to mean that you're not allowed to have authority over men in certain situations, right? Women just shut up. That's what they do. Women just keep quiet. Audrey put in the comments here, she said, I braid my hair, I wear a necklace, I'm also barren. So according to that scripture or way of thought, I cannot be saved. And she, onto that last part, it says, women will be saved through childbearing if she continues in faith and love and holiness with modesty. Well, it says that they got to be, it says saved through childbearing. What happens if a woman can't bear children? See, and what I'm pointing out here is that people they'll latch onto one text and then they will say that this is authoritative and this is exactly what it means. But then they will negotiate away other parts of the Bible and other parts of the text that they don't like. Right? Because men want women to shut up. They want women to be submissive. They don't want women to teach them only in certain situations that they allow. They won't let them have authority over men, so they can't do any other parts in the church. You can't lead or do anything else where a man might be a part of that. All right? She's to keep silent. Women are supposed to be quiet. That's what it says. For Adam was first formed, then Eve. Now, people will say the reason that this is so powerful, the reason that this is exactly why is because it appeals to creation. It appeals to creation. For Adam was first formed, then Eve. Adam was not deceived, but the woman was deceived and became a transgressor. But sin came through Adam. Elsewhere in the scriptures, it tells us that Adam, by one man, sin entered the world and death followed sin. It didn't say by one woman, sin entered the world. By one man, sin entered the world. See, now you have a seemingly contradiction or something that doesn't necessarily work with the other texts of scripture. Now we got to figure out, what does that mean? And then you start negotiating again. Well, that means in this certain instance or that certain situation or this certain place over here. But it's all part of that. Curtis mentioned something. I'm sorry, not Curtis. Gifted Guru says something here. It says, check out Deborah because no man willing to serve. She had to. We got plenty of men willing to serve nowadays. But that doesn't say that. That doesn't say that in that text. We're not bound by what Deborah does. People don't like to talk about Deborah. We're bound by this text, right? And they'll say that it appeals to creation. Well, if it appeals to creation, let me ask you this question over in 1 Corinthians 11:12. It says, actually, 1 Corinthians, starting in verse 2, 1 Corinthians 11, verse 2, it says, I commend you because you remember me in everything and maintain the traditions just as I handed them on to you. But I want you to understand that Christ is the head of every man, and the husband is the head of his wife, and God is the head of Christ. Any man who prays or prophesies with something on his head disgraces his head. But any woman who prays or prophesies with her head unveiled disgraces her head. It is one and the same thing as having her head shaved. For if a woman will not veil herself, then she should cut off her hair. But if it is disgraceful for a woman to have her hair cut off or to be shaved, she should wear a veil. For a man ought not to have his head veiled, since he is the image and reflection of God, but a woman is the reflection of man. Indeed, man was not made from woman, but woman from man. Neither was man created for the sake of woman, but woman for the sake of man. For this reason, a woman ought to have a symbol of authority on her head because of the angels. Nevertheless, in the Lord, woman is not independent of a man, or man independent of woman. For just as a woman came from man, so man comes through woman, but all things come from God. Judge for yourselves. Is it proper for a woman to pray to God with her head unveiled? Does not nature itself teach you that if a man wears long hair, it is degrading to him? But if a woman has long hair, it is her glory, for her hair is given to her for a covering. Now, first off, I have no idea what that means, because when you look at the first thing I think about is a lion. A lion, a male lion, has long hair, and it is not degrading to him at all. It's his lion's mane, right? And then you look at a female lioness, and they don't have the long mane. This text would make you think, well, what does he mean? What is he talking about there? What does he mean by nature itself teach you that if a man wears long hair is degrading to him? I don't understand that, because it doesn't. Nature doesn't teach us that. But if a woman have long hair, it is her glory. Now, what people will do, now you look at this text. So pretty much this text is saying that a woman needs to wear a head covering in a church. But interestingly enough, it says any woman who prays or prophesies with her head unveiled disgraces her head. Now, how can you prophesy if you are silent? How can you prophesy in the Bible in this context if you're not allowed to talk? So here we have Paul writing both of these passages, evidently, and both of these passages, Paul seemingly disagrees with himself. A woman who prays or prophesies with her head unveiled disgraces her head, is one and the same thing as having her head shaved. For if a woman not veil herself, then she should cut off her hair. But it is disgraceful for a woman to have her hair cut off or be shaved. She should wear a veil. So when a woman prays or prophesies, she should have her head unveiled. Okay, but we're not supposed to. Women aren't supposed to have authority over men, so to keep silent. How do those two passages work together? Well, then there's a favorite one here that I used to use myself. At the end of this text here, talking about head coverings in verse 16, it says, but if anyone is disposed to be contentious, we have no such custom, nor do the churches of God. Now, what somebody will say is they'll be like, well, that verse right there says, Paul is saying to us, if there's a problem, if people raise an issue about this, we don't have any custom like this. Neither do the other churches. I'm just saying, I'm just bringing something up. Well, why bring it up? It's superfluous. It doesn't make sense to me. And in a Bible that is in a book that is supposed to bind our consciences and direct how we do things. You just spent time here appealing to creation for women to wear head covering. It's right there. Does not nature itself teach you that if a man wears long hair, it's degrading to him? A woman is under the authority of her husband. I want you to understand that Christ is the head of every man, and the husband is the head of the wife, and God is the head of Christ. That is an authority hierarchy. Woman, man, Christ, God. That's the hierarchy that it gives us. But then at the very end, he says, but if anybody's disposed to be contentious, if anybody, we don't have a doctrine about this in the church got anywhere else. So don't worry about it. That seems uncharacteristic of Paul. Now, some people believe that this is saying, well, it's saying if somebody's going to be contentious about it, just, we don't have a custom in other churches where people are contentious and can change issues. All right. But here real quick, we're about to leave the Crusade channel. I can only do a couple more minutes on this because I got some stuff to do, but a big, huge thanks to all the support over at the Crusade channel, Mike Church and all those folks over there who have allowed me to bloviate today and then all the other times. So we appreciate all the support. And I'm looking forward to 2025 and the great things that not only this show is going to do, but the network over there at the Crusade channel. They got a lot of great things brewing. So check out crusadechannel.com. Also check out the Mike Church show that is on at 6 a.m. Central time. So 7 a.m. Eastern time on YouTube. And it's going to be broadcast to the world coming up in 2025 as well. So be sure to show them some love. Let them know how much you appreciate seeing the show over there and how much you appreciate them allowing us to broadcast on their airwaves. And it is a great thing. Mike Church is the guy who gave me my big break. So I owe him, and I appreciate him very much for everything he's done. And now everybody else that can stay on with the show, I'm going to finish up this topic and I'll say my thoughts to you as well. But everybody that's listening right now, thank you so much. This year has been hell for my family, but you all have stuck by me. You all have shown me a lot of love, a lot of support, a lot of grace. And the folks over at the Crusade channel did the same. Mike was very patient in allowing me to get back on the air and when I was able to, and really do appreciate that. So for all of you over at the Crusade channel, thank you. For all you listening to the program right now as well, thank you so much for your kindness and grace this year. And we will be talking to you soon. Happy New Year to everybody at the Crusade channel. Happy New Year to all the listeners here. And until next time, make Christ supremely valuable. Don't go anywhere, everybody, because we're still broadcasting over on Rumble. So you all have a great day. God bless. All right. So that ended. Sorry about that. I had to end the stream over to Crusade channel. No music on this one because this hour I had the problems with the camera and such, but I'm going to finish a couple of quick words and statements about this. And you can share this part of the show with anybody you want to. I'm perfectly fine with that. But we just had an appeal to creation. We just had to appeal to authority and a hierarchy in this: woman, man, Christ, God. So if we're appealing to creation over here, it's the same thing if a woman, if she has her head covered, it's the same thing as if she shaves her. I'm sorry. A woman that prophesies or prays without her head covered is the same thing. She just shaved her head. If she just went Sinead O'Connor, just gone, all gone. Shave it off. That's the same disgrace without a covering as it is for that. And it tells us here that that woman was created for man. That again appeals back to creation of the man and a hierarchy of the female and the male relationship. So why don't the people who say that women can't teach all wear head coverings or all have women wearing head coverings? Where's that? Both of the passages appeal to creation. But that one little verse, but if anyone is disposed to be contentious, we have no custom nor to the churches of God. What does that mean? Explain. So you're saying to me that Paul says that's verse 15, that's 12, 13 verses ranting about the importance of a woman wearing a head covering if she doesn't cover her head when she's praying or prophesying, that she should just shave it off because nature tells us that a man has short hair and a woman has long hair and that this is the hierarchy, right? He spends all those verses telling us that. Then at the end of that, he throws out there, but if any man is disposed to be contentious, if anybody's going to give you issues about that, if anybody's going to push back you on that, we don't have a custom on this. I'm just saying. Elsewhere in the Bible, Paul talks about being single, and he says that he's like, you know what? This is I speak this, not God, but me, right? I'm saying this, not God. And people are like, well, that's still binding because it's in the Bible. Because the Bible is authoritative in everything that it says, right? So you have a quandary here. A woman is not allowed to teach, but learn in silence and subjection. In one passage, in another passage, it says, well, a woman can prophesy and preach, but she has to cover her head. But if they give you pushback about it, we don't have any such customs either to the churches of God, which means it doesn't say anything about letting a woman prophesy or pray. It's talking about the head coverings. So the argument that it appeals to creation is kind of washed out by these two, I believe. And if you disagree with me on that, that's perfectly fine. You can email me or you can message me in the chat. You can reach out to me on Facebook. That's fine. You can do so. And then the other part of this verse where it says here, women will be saved through bearing children. I thought women were saved by grace through faith, just like men were saved by grace through faith. Right? So the passages are troubling here. So you see why when you start breaking the passages down like that and you start looking at the line by line, word by word, it's no longer just, well, it's right there. It says it right there. That's not what it means. I mean, that doesn't carry the weight because yes, it says it right there, but then over here it says something completely different. And I think that it's okay and it's healthy for us to talk about those things. Miriam was a prophetess and a leader. She led the women of Israel in worship and taught them to praise God after crossing the Red Sea. She held a prominent position alongside her brothers Moses and Aaron in leading Israel. Deborah was a prophetess, a judge, and a military leader. She instructed Barak on God's plan for defeating Sisera. She taught him. She also served as a judge, teaching and guiding the Israelites in legal and spiritual matters. A lot of people look at the Old Testament as being a lot more strict than the New Testament. She's a prime example of women exercising authority in spiritual and civil leadership. Huldah, role, prophetess, example. Huldah was consulted by consulted by King Josiah's advisors regarding the book of the law found in the temple. She delivered God's message about its implications. So her teaching spurred spiritual reforms in Judah. Priscilla, teacher and missionary, Priscilla, along with her husband Aquila, taught Apollos, an eloquent preacher, more accurately about Jesus. That's in Acts 18:26. She's often mentioned as a partner in ministry with her husband, demonstrating her active role in teaching. The Samaritan woman at the well, after her conversion with Jesus, she shared his message with her community, leading many people to believe in him. Listen to that. She was teaching her village about Jesus Christ, Mother Mary, the mother of Jesus, the Blessed Virgin Mary. Her Magnificat reflects her deep knowledge of Scripture and her ability to proclaim God's truth. She's likely taught Jesus during his upbringing. Her faith and wisdom influenced the early life of Christ and served as a model for believers. Phoebe was a deacon and possibly a teacher, is commended by Paul as a deacon of the church in Centuria. Some scholars suggest she delivered and perhaps explained Paul's letter to the Romans. My gosh, all these women disobeying the teachings of Paul. My word, how terrible. What are they going to do when they get to 1 Corinthians? They're going to be like, what in the world? I've been doing it all wrong. So here, let's see. And these can all be attested to. These are all scriptural backings of this. So this was, and I want to get real quick to Romans, and I don't have a huge amount of time here. I still got to do Christmas shopping. That's I got to go out and get a couple of gifts here, but let me get here real quick. Romans 16. Why is it going to 1 Timothy? I want Romans. Oh, there we go. You got to go to contents. I'm using this new study software, trying to learn how to use it. And it's very weird. Romans 16, I commend to you our sister Phoebe of the church at Centuria, that you may receive her in the Lord as befits the saints, and help her in whatever she may require from you, for she has been a helper of many and myself as well. Oh my goodness. He commended her as a teacher and said, do what she says, give her what she wants. Lois and Eunice, teachers of Timothy. Lois's grandmother and Eunice, his mother, taught Timothy the scriptures from an early age. Their instruction helped shape Timothy, a key leader in the church. And Paul even says that, but then tells him, by the way, don't let him talk in church. Tell him to shut up, keep their mouth shut. Look, all of this is not to tell you that the Bible is wrong. All of this is to point to some things that I find very interesting. You have two seemingly disagreeable statements in Scripture. One says a woman can pray and prophesy. Actually, not one. Multiple scriptures say that women can pray and prophesy. They say that women can be instructors. They say that women can lead, that women can teach men. And then you have this one verse in 1 Timothy that says, I suffer not a woman to teach nor usurp authority over man, but they should be quiet, learning silence and all subjection. And you're like, wait, but what? Huh? And you wonder about that. I wonder about that stuff. If you wonder about it, you can wonder about it right along with me. But we quibble over these things, we get mad at one another over these things, and we don't get anywhere. We end up hurting one another, damaging one another, and shutting people down when they don't need to be shut down. And you've got to be very careful here. And I'll say this in my parting words. You got to be very careful. And when I say that, what I mean is when you start to talk about these subjects and you present yourself as an authority on these subjects because you're talking about them. I no longer present myself as an authority because I don't know jack squat about some stuff. But when you present yourself an authority on these things, are you an authority because this is something you've researched and studied and dug deep into? Or are you just reading what other people say and regurgitating it? Are you accepting dogmas and traditions that you have been taught by your particular institution and then just repeating those? Now, some will say, no, I've done a word study. I've exegeted this myself. I said the same things. But a Strong's Concordance is not does not an exegete make. A Strong's Concordance does not an exegete make. Just because you got one of those books doesn't mean you're a biblical scholar. Nor does it mean you're good at exegeting scripture. You might be guilty of committing the illegitimate totality transfer where you cram all the meanings of one word into a text and you have something like the Amplified Bible, but you're not a scholar. I'm not a scholar. And I said earlier in the show, at some point you have to start, at some point we all just get a little frustrated or tired, or we're just like, I trust this guy. I like this guy's teaching. I like what he says. I'm going to absorb his teaching into my own. But before you go out there bashing other people for asking questions or downing people because they don't have seminary degrees or because they're not pastors or because they're not elders or deacons in their church, what qualifies you? That's a big thing. And I appreciate the fact that, and not that anybody else doesn't get this, but I appreciate the fact that Audrey gets this on Facebook. I, again, posted up something that, sparked the ire of folks this past week. And it was on Christmas Eve. And it was simply me saying, this is for all people. Yeah, Toby, we're still live for the next few minutes. Welcome to the program, brother. I appreciate seeing you. I posted up a thing that said, fear not, for I bring good tidings of great joy, which shall be to all people. And I got 43 comments into this thing, and people jumping all over me about celebrating. I got people jumping on me about celebrating Christmas and posting up stuff about Horus and all these other Osiris and Mithras and Sol Invictus and Nimrod and all these various gods. Then all these people telling me, oh, it's only for people who repent. It's only for the elect. And then Audrey posted in which we have a breakdown backstage pass. If you're not part of the show, you can join in over there on Facebook. It's just a message a conversation in chat that has us, all the listeners of the show, most of the listeners of the show kind of discussing things and dropping things in there, talking to each other, praying for one another and stuff. And Audrey posted in there, she said, "It baffles me how people are missing the point of what you post. Not one single comment is about the love of Jesus and his joy. It's all about hate." And that really, honestly, and I appreciate the fact that, and I'm sure a lot of other people get it that aren't commenting on there, but I appreciate the fact that is not missed on people. Look, I'm just saying, don't be a douchebag. Love people, share the gospel, share the love of Christ, and try not to be a complete ass clown when you do it. It's not that difficult. Actually, it is pretty difficult because it's taken me a long time to get to this point. But I think I've said all I want to say on that today. It is the last show of the new year. And I just want to say to everybody that has been listening to the show, thank you so much. It means so much that you all are up on Saturday mornings in different time zones in different parts of the nation, maybe parts of the world too. And you're tuning into the show to listen to us discuss these things. And I know Erica appreciates it as well. And she would be saying the same things if you were here also. But thank you so much. It means the world to me that you would want to listen to us pontificate, and to me today, pontificate about things and discuss things of interest to myself and hopefully of interest to you. But 2025, I pray, is a blessed year for every person out there. I hope 2025 is better than 2024. I hope 2025, even if you had an amazing and excellent year, God bless you. I'm so glad and so happy for you. If 2024 was amazing and you're sitting here at the end of the year and you're like, this was fantastic, I'm so happy that you had that kind of year. And I only pray that next year is 10 times as grand for you as it was this year. I know I am not so much on air because I don't have a lot of time to pontificate of my own mental meanderings. But in my personal life, there's a lot of things going cattywampus mentally and emotionally. And we're all just trying to hold it together. We're all just trying to keep it together. A lot of stuff went jackknife this year that wasn't supposed to happen. But I forgot what I was going to say. But I can't forget that there are folks out there like you wonderful people who supported us through prayers and kind gestures and food and sent money and sent donations. We had people that sent me mic stands and soundboards and mic cables. We had people that literally bought me a brand new computer and brand new monitors for my computer so that I would be able to do the show. I'm not joking. I'm talking about like the setup I have here is like $1,200. Actually, I think it's like $1,600. Mic and stands and monitors and computer and all of that stuff. Somebody just bought that for me. And I sit back and I'm like, wow. Toby is a paid subscriber over on Substack. Like, dude, I mean, I suck. The show, is only good when other people are with me, and you're a paid subscriber. Thank you so much for that. That you have no idea what that means, to somebody who loves to talk and loves to teach and loves to, expound on things and just want to run my mouth. For somebody to be like, hey, yeah, I'll pay to listen to you, or somebody to be like, hey, yeah, I'll take my Saturday morning and I'll listen to you and I'll contribute and I'll share your show and I'll talk to you. And that's just it's incredible to me. My motto for life is I assume everybody hates my guts. And then if I find out they like me, I'm pleasantly surprised. And I hope I'm not speaking out of turn, but I've been pleasantly surprised since I joined the Mojo family. And even though Mojo doesn't broadcast live anymore, it's mainly just a podcasting network. I have friends that I've made from over there. And I have been pleasantly surprised since I joined the show back in 2000, since I joined the network back in 2019, I believe, or 2019, I think. Bree knows the exact year or the date in the year. So Toby says, Happy New Year. Looking forward to a wonderful 2025 for all of us. I'll go ahead and do this here. I'm going to go ahead and just pin this out there. Bam. There's Toby. And then, yes, and Happy New Year to you as well, Toby. Looking forward to more excellent bridge competitions for you this year. It is bridge, right? It is bridge. And then Audrey says here, I look forward to Saturday mornings in the show. I love the Mojo 50 family and the shows we all support. Well, I'm glad the camera's off right now. I'm not crayon, you're crayon. Look. We pray the same for you too, Audrey. And I'm going to pin this other one up here. I'm still here. Deb says, we love the breakdown and you, Aaron. Thank you for the show. God bless you and all that. God bless you and all, and looking forward to a wonderful 2025. And Toby, thank you, Deb. Toby says, I'm happy to support your voice. Well, I didn't expect all of this, to be honest with you, for the last show of the year. As mentioned, I'm glad that the camera's off. Thank you all. I got to pull it together for like 30 more seconds, and then I can fall into a heap and crying on the floor. Look, everybody, I love you all too. Thank you all. This means the world to me. I can't say it enough. I can't express it enough. I just hope that in 2025, the Lord blesses you all with health and family and love and joy. And I hope that we can continue to make great radio and great shows together. And if Erica were here, I would tell her just as much as I appreciate her willingness to get up every Saturday morning and be here, to come here after she volunteers and to be on the show and listen to me whine and pontificate. And I know Brian had a lot of stuff that he has going on, with going to school and with his personal ministry and such. And the fact that he dedicated those years to being on the program as well, means a lot. It does not go wasted. It doesn't. Those types of blessings, they mean something to people. And although we don't always say it, we know it and we feel it. I love you too, everybody. Gifted Guru says, let's make this show increase to 1,000 followers and lots more views each month. Share with everyone, broadcast it in the store every week. Love you. I love you too, Gifted. Thank you so much for that. And all right, I'm going to stop. If I don't stop, I'm going to break down here. So, hey, that's what the show is. All right, everybody. And again, love you all. We will be back next week, Lord willing. And until next time, make Christ supremely valuable.